Hey guys, Ryan Dement from Chasing Financial Freedom Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great day. Today on the podcast, we have Matthew Pezon. Matthew is the CEO of
Pezon Properties.
former chemical engineer turned real estate investor, owner of 200 apartments with no investor or partners, Fulbright scholar, Spanish speaker, husband, and father of 3 young children. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Right.
You're welcome. Sorry that I can't pronounce your name correctly.
Not a problem.
So before we get into a little bit of your real estate journey and so forth, can you tell listeners about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm 36 years old, father of 3 young children. My wife and I have three under three, and that's my why. It's what I'm here to do. I love it. And I also invest in real estate, and we love traveling and doing different things too. I transitioned into full-time investor, and I'm excited to be here to talk about it.
Cool. So when did you transition from side hustle to full time? So how did the pandemic hit you when it came to moving from a side hustle to a full time? Did it delay a little bit?
So in the end, it actually advanced things and pushed them faster because of all the appreciation that we saw. But then a lot of the rent assistance came into play and things took off from there. So it ended up being a very good thing for us.
That's awesome. So let's start with how'd you get into the space, what you were doing before, and then what got you motivated to say, okay, I'm leaving corporate America and do this full time?
Sure. I am actually one test away still from becoming a professional engineer. I went to chemical engineering school, graduated in 2010, and I went to work for a big chemicals company. And my first boss out of college told me that I was the worst employee he ever had and the company should fire me. I realized that I didn't want one client. I didn't want one customer. I didn't want to be a worker in a large company forever. I just had a bad experience initially, and I'm thankful for it today. I was always motivated by success, and I just found that I didn't want to be in a corporate environment forever. But it took me 12 years to get out of it after that point, but I did eventually.
What got you to the point of real estate?
When you mentioned my Fulbright scholarship, I went to business school in Madrid in 2013. And that's where I learned about debt, I learned about equities, and I learned about real estate and entrepreneurship. And I was fortunate enough to learn about it in a classroom setting. And then I knew once I got back to the US, I was going to build my own real estate business because I just understood debt. I understood financing and how to rents pay everything off. So that was how I got started in business school.
Why apartments versus single family residence?
So I started with single family residences, and I liked those because they tended to be more stable. Families would stay 5, 7 years, but eventually they became inefficient. Now you have 50 roofs instead of two roofs or one roof. And so it just became a maintenance difficulty also.
Okay. What size of apartments do you currently have? You say you have 200. How's that broken out?
They're broken up between 2 to 3 units and 12 to 15 units. So it's still relatively small multifamily.
So is the 2 to 3 units more difficult to manage than the larger units?
The nice thing about the 2 to 3 units is that a lot of times FHA buyers will purchase them. So I really like them for that reason. There's no real difference in the makeup of the apartments, whether it's 3 units or 12, other than it's just more dispersed if you have 4 3 units and one unit.
So when you say FHA buyers, and some people don't understand that, what are you referring to with FHA and how that works?
The house hacking crowd that's looking to get into live in one unit and have the rents from the other 2 units pay off living expenses. FHA buyer can buy up to a 4 unit property. So fortunately, I accumulated a lot of those over the years, and there's a lot of incentives for that first time home buyer.
Nice. So are you turning over inventory on a consistent basis, or are you trying to hold it for a longer period of time?
Up until 2022, I never sold a property. So I purchased properties for 8 years. And then as rates started to go up and it was harder to refinance them and pull equity out via a refinance, I started to sell. But I've never been a net seller. I've always bought more than I've sold.
Mhm. So what got you into selling? Was it because of interest rates? What were you trying to accomplish by selling?
The properties had accumulated equity because for many years in my area, appreciation was 8, 10, 12, 15% annualized. When rates went up, It was more expensive to borrow, and the lenders wouldn't give the time a loan amount because the property couldn't service all that debt. So the loan amount I could get actually went down while the property value went up. That gap between what the property was worth and what the mortgage could be eventually became so great that it made sense to sell and put the proceeds into the next property. That's what I started to do because that's what the market told me to do.
Are you using any type of tax shelter vehicles at all?
Just the depreciation on the new purchases.
Mm. Not a 1031 exchange or anything to that extent?
No, just because over the last, now it's changing. I think this year it's 60% bonus depreciation as it phases down. But for 5 years there, it didn't make sense to do a 1031 exchange because the replacement property would offset the sold property anyway if you took bonus depreciation. So it was a de facto 1031 exchange without actually doing an exchange.
When it comes to getting into the space and you went through learning about debt and so forth, why real estate? Why real estate, specifically multifamily?
It was a product that I understood. I had paid rent for many years as a tenant myself, and so I understood what it was like on the other side of the table. A tangible asset, something that typically had gone up in value over many years. There were fluctuations in time, but I saw how without doing much to the property other than minor repairs, that dollar denominated value would increase. There were other businesses that also have business debts. There's a lot of business leverage debt, but it's not a tangible asset other than, of course, it's a business, but it's not a physical thing. I just always understood physical things, and I saw that they went up with value over time, and that's what drew me to the space.
Cool. You talk about getting into the space without any investors or partners. How did you start? And I guess the good question here is, if there's people listening that are in your space or want to become a landlord or an investor, how can they start without a partner or investors?
That's what I did. I would go around. So all my friends were Friday night, Saturday night, going out, partying, whatever, when I was in my early 20s. I was getting up early on Saturdays, meeting with a group of investors in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and going around and seeing properties every weekend. And I made friends of folks that could show me how to invest in properties and how they were doing things. And I just asked a whole lot of questions.
And when you started, how much capital did you need to get your first property?
I needed $15,000 at the time,
Okay. Was that a
probably
multifamily?
in today's dollars.
Okay. So was that a duplex, triplex?
It was a single family investment property. And I had my car paid off and I had 401k money. So I borrowed from my 401k. I refinanced my car and I got a personal loan as well. And I learned from my mentors how the banks are looking at the loans and how much leverage you can take. And I knew that with my salary, I could pay off all the debt. And with the tenant income, it would get approved. And so I was able to put money into that property and then I repaired it and then I refinanced it not long thereafter to get my capital back.
The Burr method.
Right.
Yeah. If someone is looking to start in today's day and age, where would you suggest they start?
Before they look at real estate out there, they should look at the real estate between their own ears. And what I mean by that is they should get educated. They should find out why they want to invest, where they want to invest, what type of product they want to invest in, and what their philosophy is on investing. Everyone wants to jump on Zillow right away and start looking, and they don't even figure out who their team is and why they're investing, what their philosophy is. So start in your head before you get out looking at real estate.
Education is a big piece, and a lot of people don't actually do that. I'm an affordable housing developer, so I buy infill lots and I build ground up, and then I sell. I am not in the landlord business. My joke is I don't do tenants, toilets, or 2 a.m. phone calls. I want to be the bank. So I'm a lender, I'm a broker, but we're also a private lender. If we have somebody that wants to buy a property, we can finance them through several different means. It makes more sense for me because I just don't want the headache. So that's just me. It's personal.
To the affordable housing space, I have a HAP contract, 25 units, and it's a lot of administration, a lot of overhead, just dealing with the contract and HUD itself. So I can appreciate why you're saying that for the affordable space.
Yeah, it's just so much easier. And then we really partner with local cities and sometimes states to where they have these infill lots that have been sitting around doing nothing. And we're looking at a deal now of 20 lots. And I'm like, okay, it's not bad. But again, there's got to be benefits in that. And then learning between that space, I like what you said, is getting that space between your ears and educating, because this will be a whole different deal because they want to put basically the city is going to pretty much give us the lots. And then also, since they haven't been hooked up to any type of utility in probably 10 plus years, they're also going to grandfather that in so we don't have to pay tap fees. I'm a little hesitant because I'm a for profit and I have to figure out how that is going to play out because they're going to say that it's a grant and I'm sure it's going to be taxable. So I need to understand that. So there's the real estate between my ears. I got to do some homework and figure that process out. So we'll see what happens. But if you don't put yourself out there and go after it, you really can't determine what's going to work other than what's on the internet or television, so forth. And people just think it's so easy. And it's not.
It is absolutely not.
That is very true, but, you hear about it, quite frequently when someone says, "Oh, I'm gonna buy this dump of a house, and I'm gonna fix and flip it and make it all happy and joy." Do you realize there's fire damage in there and how much work you have to do? It's cheaper to knock the dang thing down and build it up. And
Yeah, I
it's
lost money on my first flip because I thought it was easy and it wasn't. I didn't try to flip anything again for 7 more years. It was such a bad experience.
it's not for the faint of heart. I've flipped quite a bit of houses in my time, and if you ask me to go back to it again, I never will. Give me an infill lot, give me dirt, give me something where I can make the canvas pretty, and I'll go for it because I know the pits there. Believe me, there's holes in there that you can lose a lot of money on development. But if you got the right team, like you said, it works. So
Absolutely.
so for that, it leads me into my question. How did you build yourself a team? Because it sounds like you've got a team. And what were you looking for? And how did you basically prepare yourself to bring these people on the journey with you to support you? Because ultimately, you don't want to be working in the business, you want to work on the business.
Yeah, I mean that there's a lot there. I'd say first I had to get educated to learn the space, and mentors were key. Then after that, I had to learn what I meant. And for me, it was always about lifestyle investing, where my corporate job and my wife, kids, and I could go on vacation, and we would have a passive investment, mostly passive. I don't believe anything's fully passive, but we could have an asset. We could have that a little bit of residual income. So once you figure out what you want to do, then you can figure out where you want to invest, if you know your philosophy, and then you figure out your team. To figure out your team, I made a lot of mistakes here, but I would say there has to be a culture fit. You have to be clear on what that culture is and your core values, because you can't create a culture. You can only hire people that embody your values. I learned that the hard way, and I only realized after I hired them. I hired the wrong people. I built the wrong team, and then I had to redo it. I didn't understand how to hire and how to recruit and how to motivate and how to lead. I didn't understand any of those things. So it's really something that you can read about. I worked with a high level real estate consultant in the space, and again, coaching, mentorship, going back to that name. So that's what I'd recommend on hiring a team.
I love that. And I think those are all great things. But let's say you're starting out, you don't have a large budget. Is there a way that would there be a different way that you'd go about starting than what you actually did?
No, because I worked with mentors who could refer out the best people that could be good fits. I lost money on my first flip. So I could go back and change anything. I wouldn't, because I would have started with that mentor or the same mentor community. I would have just vetted the people better. You know, I would have understood contractor draw schedules. Like, no, I'm not going to front you 50% of the project, because that means that they're taking my money to pay off the previous guy for the previous job that they couldn't pay. And it's just corralling your pay Paul. All the things I learned along the way, I would have vetted those people closer.
I guess
I
I
would have started with a more jaded mentality going into this, instead of, oh, what's the worst? The rose colored glasses. What's the worst that can go wrong? Because all the worst things that could go wrong happened to me. Fortunately, I'm not starting to tell the stories, but I would just assume the worst and hope for the best when you're trying to work with good people.
just, and you don't have to share if you don't want to, is how much did you spend on this advisor or mentor when you first started?
So the mentors were completely free. It was, and this was before bigger pockets and anything like that. So actually, the knowledge and education is much more abundant than it was when I started. But it was just a local realtor who around a group of individuals who would he was basically a buyer's agent for a group of people. And we'd all go around and look at properties. So there's no fee, which is what I would recommend. I would find a person in your community who's willing to take you under their wing, show you properties that you can invest in. I wouldn't pay for mentorship. Getting started.
Was that realtor and I'm not, this is no knock, but I deal with a lot of realtors on a daily basis, and some of them just don't understand investing. So you found one of the rare ones that actually did.
He owned 20 some properties at the time. He specialized in investors that purchase properties.
So outside of a realtor, who else did you actually use as a mentor when you first started up?
Other investors, those that were actually doing the thing I wanted to do. I found other investors actually doing the thing successfully and I wanted to do, and I became a friend and asked them questions. Not someone who was going to tell me about it, but someone who was doing it, and I could actually go to their houses.
That's cool because you can't find that nowadays. It's pretty hard. It's just everyone's a guru. One of the things that I like that I've been going to is local meetups, similar
Yes,
to
I was
what
gonna
you're
say that.
talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, they work very well. There's some great people in there, and there's some not so great people, but whatever. But you're connecting and talking to other people, and you're basically vetting yourself out. And that's how I've met 3 or 4 people in my local market in Arizona here that want to do investing, or they're private lenders or whatever the case is, and they want to buy property or whatever. But it's vetting out the process and getting out in front of people.
No better.
Yeah, and you get to know exactly what that person's made of and what he or she's trying to do, and then you figure out if it works, yes or no, and if it doesn't, great. If it does, you keep trucking.
Yeah, that's right. And you bring up a good point that there's going to be all different sorts of people. You get them, you ask different questions, see who resonates with you, and go from there. You might be led down the wrong path initially, but then you can come back and you just keep figuring it out. But I wouldn't open capital or resources or just taking a hot tip to buy a property. Like really think through your risk analysis. What could go wrong? What's the worst that could happen? Do I have enough cash? All those things.
I like it. It's dark, but it also helps you too, because if you're not prepared for the worst, it's going to come up and bite you. Because my first flip didn't lose money, but we barely, I would say we made a couple $1,000. It wasn't very much. And that was probably the most stressful part of my life. And I said, man, what am I doing in this business? And we kept on flipping, not hundreds, but pretty close. And then got into building. And then building became it's just a passion now. When it comes to really honing your skills, what are you doing on a daily basis, monthly basis to keep yourself sharp and staying on top of trends in the market?
Yeah, sure. My team and we read one book per month that's based on personal development or leadership, and then we discuss that continuous pursuit of growth, betterment, and improvement. I listen to a couple of podcasts that are news based. I look at what rates are doing for interest rates, and I'm looking at supply in my market. I'm looking at the average and median sale price increases year over year, and I'm just looking at those main indicators: job creation, population growth versus housing units available.
The other piece of rentals and so forth, I'm going to ask you the downside now. All the positives have been shared. What are 3 downsides of being a landlord?
You have to enforce the rules, and it's hard because you might feel that, oh no, I shouldn't enforce these because they're going through a difficult time or whatever. I've lost 10, 12 months of rent from a few rentals during COVID, and it was just hard. Things can go wrong like that. Non-paying residents it could be a challenging business because you're trying to get contractors to fix stuff. You're trying to get things done for the residents, and they're upset because the problem isn't solved. But you called around 3 roofers and they were all no-shows. It could be tricky. I'd say the residents, the contractors, and I'd say management in general. Actually doing the work is tough.
So are you self-managing, or do you have property management helping you?
I've been with third-party management for about 6 years. I self-managed up until about 15 units myself. Then I did third-party management so I could just keep buying all the apartments and the houses. But now that I've built that acquisition side, I'm going to be bringing back in-house the property management component because it's just become too expensive to outsource as third party. So the pendulum is shifting back for me to the middle.
So you're going to have to hire employees to handle all that?
I have
And
the main property manager that I'm hiring. I'm doing that now. And then from there, that person will hire technicians, will hire an assistant overseas to handle a lot of the operational kind of bookkeeping stuff and go from there.
nice. What do you think that's going to do for yourself overall on a day-to-day basis? Is it going to eat up more time? Is it going to get better over time? Or is it just going to be just status quo and just keep on rolling?
So initially, it's going to be a lift. I'm setting it up now. There's insurance, there's software, legal, tax, all that stuff. But it's not too difficult to do just because I've been in business for as long as I have. It takes work, but I have that wherewithal. Um, but the end stage will be no net impact to my time because I'll have a team that I manage with KPIs, indicators, we have policies, HR procedures, all those things that just govern the activities that we do. And then those employees can perform to our standards or not. And then we deal with either situations. It's not going to be a net impact on me after the 90 days. My acquisitions team is crushing it. We just closed on 6 units on Friday and they just signed another deal today. We're about to sign another one tomorrow. And I didn't even realize that we had an appointment today. We got an agreement signed. It's that's coming.
That's awesome. It's all the upfront work that you're doing is going to set yourself up for success. Otherwise, it just becomes, I call it lost in the sauce because I've done that before. And if you don't set up those SOPs and put those guidelines in, those guardrails, it just doesn't work.
No, I made that
Yes.
mistake too.
I think we all have.
Yeah.
We're getting close here to wrapping. Just a couple more questions. What would you share as your best tip or trick that you could share with somebody that wants to potentially get in this space?
Mindset is really important. And I've heard that, and I guess I always will ask what that means. So I'll try to explain it. I was growing up, I was afraid of money. Money was something that was lacking. I was afraid of debt, but I learned how to use debt and money are a tool. And so I had paid off all of my debts and paid off my student loans. But then as quickly as I got out of debt, I got right into that because I realized the power of leverage. So I would say that not fearing money, not being afraid to make mistakes, but also controlling your risk because you can, especially when you're starting, you can write yourself out if you make mistakes and you can be in the penalty box for a long time. Don't be afraid of risks, but also be prudent in your decision making and really identify those limiting beliefs that have prevented you from investing up until this point and addressing those.
Before we end, are you working with anybody, helping anybody, mentoring? If anybody wanted to reach out and talk to you, could they?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I actually do a free pro bono community service that I do through the real estate lab in Allentown. Basically, it's a program where the residents of Allentown can participate and learn how to bridge the wealth gap through real estate, through enterprising activities, as opposed to not being able to have the opportunity that they have had in the past because they might have been from a disadvantaged group. I try to break down those barriers, make it a good thing to do for society and try to help people that never would have had an opportunity to invest in real estate. I provide free mentorship here locally, but if you're interested in reaching out, you can find me on my website, pezonproperties.com. That's Pezon properties.com and fill out our form and we can connect.
Nice. I will share that in the notes on the episode. So, sir, thank you for coming on. You found yourself financial freedom through hard work and perseverance, and you found where you're going. So, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.